Good afternoon and welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, March 16th, 2026. I'll call the meeting to order at 5 p.m. First item on the agenda item 1.1, Land Acknowledgement. The town of Coaldale acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot peoples of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot peoples past, present, and future while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The town of Coaldale is also home to Métis District 1 Foothills. Agenda item 1.2, Conflict of Interest Declaration, Pecuniary and Non-pecuniary. Are there any in the room this afternoon? None declared. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2.1, acceptance of the agenda for today, March 16th, 2026. Were there any additions or deletions? Seeing none, could I get someone to entertain making a motion that council adopt the regular council meeting agenda for March 16th, 2026 as presented? Councillor Reese makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. Moving on to adoption of the previous minutes, agenda item 3.1. We have the regular council meeting minutes from February 23rd, 2026. Were there any errors or omissions in those meeting minutes? See none, could I get someone to entertain making a motion that council approve the February 23rd, 2026 regular council meeting minutes as presented? Deputy Mayor Beekman makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. Moving on to agenda item 3.2, we have the special council meeting minutes from February 24th, 2026. Were there any errors or omissions in those meeting minutes? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council approve the February 24th, 2026 special council meeting minutes as presented? Councillor Pickering makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. Moving on to delegation, under agenda item 5.0, public hearing. We actually have two of them this afternoon, and they both pertain to the same piece of property. And we're going to have Cameron Mills, our Director of Growth and Investment and Deputy CAO, speak to them both. And I'm going to open and close the meeting at the same time for both of them because they're the same subject matter. So I'm going to call the public hearing to order at 5:03 p.m. And Mr. Mills, if you want to introduce 5.1, please.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. So, a little bit confusing in the sense that we have two bylaws for consideration. Bylaw 929 P0226 and Bylaw 930 P0226. I'll refer to them as bylaws 929 and 930. 929 has to do with an amendment to an area structure plan, and Bylaw 930 is a rezoning bylaw, fundamentally rezoning of the parcel in line with the amendment to the area structure plan. So 930 can't exist without 929. 929 will ultimately provide us with the clarity on the issue that we need. Looking to present, as mentioned, looking to present them jointly here at this public hearing. Fundamentally, what they're doing is considering the change to the planning and ultimately development of a single lot within the Canal Crossing subdivision. Neither bylaw serves any noticeable purpose without the other, and hence, for the sake of clarity, we're going to speak to them both jointly. Fundamentally, this comes from a request from the developer to alter the South Coaldale revised area structure plan, which was adopted by bylaw in July of 2021, to change a requirement that is currently in place on a single lot within the subdivision, which is now known as Lot 1, Block 2, Plan 2511030, that requires that lot be developed for seniors housing. Namely, page 15 of the ASP states, a seniors housing complex is planned for the northwest portion of Lot 1, Block B, Plan 49FJ. The parcel is currently zoned R1A, whereas other surrounding parcels within the area structure plan are zoned R2. R1A zoning remains suitable for seniors housing as seniors housing would be a discretionary use within the district. However, the developer has found interest in pursuing a project on the site has not been in line with expectations in the 5-year period since passing the bylaw. An alternative proposal for 18 units of multifamily has instead been brought forward, but this would require first rezoning to R2, and in order to do that, would require an amendment to the area structure plan. I've prepared, rather than going through the entirety of the report, council's had an opportunity to take a look at that. I've prepared an area structure, or a bit of a PowerPoint presentation to talk a little bit about the area structure plan and the sort of overall design and how we arrived at where we are now. So we'll go over the purpose of an area structure plan. Obviously, council is going to be aware of this, but just for anyone listening to the hearing who may not be familiar with some of the planning processes, provide a little bit of that information, an overview of the area, a description of the proposal itself, and then I'm also going to provide an overview of seniors housing. All we have within the area structure plan to define seniors housing is that line that I had read for you there. We'd had an opportunity to present a bit of a synopsis on seniors housing to council about a year and a half ago now. We're going to use that as just an opportunity to take a look at that so that everyone listening at home or in the audience who's maybe not familiar with how seniors housing works has an opportunity to understand what it is that we're talking about. So first, the purpose of an area structure plan. And so the Municipal Government Act in section 633 outlines the requirements or outlines area structure plans, noting that it's a statutory plan, which is to say adopted by bylaw for the purpose of providing a framework for the subsequent subdivision and development of an area of land, noting that an area structure plan must at a minimum include the sequence of development proposed for the area, the land uses proposed for the area, either generally or with respect to specific parts of the area, the density of population proposed for the area generally or with respect to specific parts of the area, and can contain other matters at council's discretion. So the area of town we're talking about is this 30th Avenue quarter section. This is in the southern part of the community, annexed into Coaldale in the 1980s. Historically underdeveloped. So what we mean there is that for a quarter section, the relative density of the quarter is very, very low. What we have in this quarter is a significant number of sort of large acreage lots that exist, 3 acres, 5 acres, 8 acres. These are large lots from an urban perspective, but are very small lots from a developable perspective in terms of the finances associated with converting, a blank quarter section of 160 acres into a neighborhood. So it's a difficult part of town upon which to see development. So the original area structure plan for the quarter section was produced in 1999, and then there was a revised area structure plan for that northern portion shown in white there, which was approved by bylaw in 2010. And then following that, the area shown here on the map outlined in the red hash marks was part of the revised area structure plan that was approved in 2021. The areas there outlined in those red hatch marks are the area that the developer was pursuing in order to develop the piece. So fundamentally, what we have within the space is three types of land uses. We have low density R1A shown here in purple. So those lots shown there in purple are estimated to be R1A is our most standard single family residential zoning. This would be most of the areas, the older areas of town, Cottonwood, most of Westgate would have this type of zoning. And then in orange, we're showing medium density R2. And so there's an avenue coming in off of 17th Street. The area to the north, bordering the canal, is R2. And what we have there is the higher density, still within sort of a medium density type zoning, where we have low-rise apartment building type development along there. And then south of the avenue, we also have R2 zoning, but that's more sort of townhouse style street funding variety of housing. And then you can see seniors housing outlined in the top left corner of the area, outlined in yellow, and that is the subject of the proposed amendment. So during the area structure plan process, the applicant used ISL engineering to put the plan together, and they undertook a very robust public engagement process that lasted from January to April of 2021. Everyone will recall what January to April of 2021 were like in terms of gathering people in public, so this all would have been virtual. But they did a really good job of making sure that they reached out to people and gave lots of opportunity for community feedback. Generally, the feedback throughout these sessions focused on a concern about density, particularly encroaching on the properties to the south of the revised area structure plan, issues with respect to sanitary, sewer, and stormwater, and support for an open space buffer along the southern portion of the plan area to separate from the houses currently occupying to the south. Seniors housing during this was presented in the plan by the developer as an accommodation for a client who had brought forward a proposal to develop seniors housing in nearby Fieldstone. So the application required rezoning at that case in Fieldstone down the street from CR1 to R1A, but failed to pass the rezoning hearing back in 2020, and that client at the time was still interested in developing that proposal, and so the idea, as I understand it, was to accommodate that in this space. So what is being proposed now? So the proposal is that within this space, the lot identified in yellow there would convert from quote unquote seniors housing to multifamily housing, which is to say to match the zoning of the areas across the street to the south and to the east. Rezoning would put that in line with the rest of the avenue. The density proposed here is more in line on the lower side of the R2 zoning with those properties across the street than it is with the three-story apartment buildings to the east. The proposal specifics would be addressed by the MPC at the development permit stage, but I did provide for a frame of reference what that is proposed to look like. And so the picture shown here is a rendering provided by the applicant. So we're looking at those 4 buildings arranged in a square formation. That's a total of 18 units. So that's 3 fourplexes and a 6plex. In both cases, we've got properties on the ground level as well as properties on the second floor. There is internal parking lot provided with 38 stalls, and significant landscaping around all the edges of the property is what the proposal looks like. So I want to provide an overview of the seniors housing landscape as well, just so we can understand when we say seniors housing, what is it that we're talking about. So in terms of seniors housing, quote unquote, there are 3 types of seniors housing that we tend to consider. So first of all, public providers, which are operated by housing management bodies. And so what that means, I'm just going to scroll along here. These are what you're going to recognize within each community, providing that public accessible seniors housing. So we've got Green Acres Foundation operating within the Lethbridge County area. Ridge Country Housing operates under the County of Warner. The Tabor and District Housing Foundation operating in the Tabor area. There's also private not-for-profit providers. And so these are providers that are providing seniors housing that are not necessarily looking to make, they're not traded on the stock exchange. They're not looking to maximize profits, but they are not publicly funded. So in Coaldale, Green Acres Foundation receives a requisition through property tax. Private not-for-profit providers do not receive that requisition, so their costs, their revenues have to match their costs, but they're not necessarily looking to maximize their revenue relative to their costs. So examples of that would be Covenant Health, or the Good Samaritans. Covenant Health obviously is a Catholic organization. Good Samaritans, I believe, are Lutheran. Oftentimes, private not-for-profit providers are faith-based. It's not necessarily a requirement, but that is typically how this sort of thing works. And then third, there are private for-profit providers. So there's companies you can buy on the Toronto Stock Exchange that provide seniors housing, and what they're trying to do is maximize their dividend payment to their shareholders. This would include, for example, Optima Living or Atria Living Canada, or two large-scale providers nationally. These folks are generally charging the maximum available rate that they can get, just like any landlord would, but they're providing a level of service, typically a higher price point, equating also to a higher sort of overall product offering to match that price point. So, public providers are established by ministerial order to provide affordable, subsidized housing for seniors in designated areas. So, Green Acres Foundation would be that provider within Coaldale. It's governed by the Alberta Housing Act. They're able to provide housing with seniors, housing with various service levels, sometimes all under one roof. So, the Sunny South Lodge has a variety of service offerings. And they're afforded the power to requisition municipalities in their designated area of operations so long as they provide lodge accommodations. Requisitions go towards a number of things, but the amount of the management body's annual deficit for the previous fiscal year arising from the provision of the lodge accommodation, and any amount necessary to establish or continue reserve funding for the management body. So in addition to paying for any annual deficit arising from the provision of lodge accommodation, requisitions from Coaldale residents also go into reserve fund for future projects. So private not-for-profit providers, as mentioned, typically faith-based, but they provide seniors housing to the public in general. So Covenant operates Martha's House in Lethbridge. This is an example of this type of housing. West Highland Centre and Estates, also in Lethbridge, operated by Good Sam's. And Beloved Care is looking at a potential facility in Coaldale, which would offer potentially the same sort of provision. These are going to provide housing with partial and full services, sometimes for clients requiring healthcare and memory care, but it is not subsidized, which is to say there are no rent controls. And then private for-profit providers, so essentially high-end housing for able-bodied seniors, typically not faith-based. So we're looking at Atria Retirement Canada has The View in Lethbridge. The Seasons Retirement Communities has Seasons Lethbridge Gardens. These provide housing with partial and full services, but typically not with healthcare services or memory care services. And housing is not subsidized, which is to say there are no rent controls. So how rent is set differs between the three types. Housing management bodies, basic rent for social housing is set at 30% of household income in order to maintain affordability. So if your household income is $10,000 a month, 30% of that can be allocated towards your rent. If your household income is substantially less than that, your rent through these services is going to be substantially lower. Private not-for-profit providers, again, they are not-for-profit, so there are no rent controls governing how much they can charge seniors for accommodation, but seniors who live in private not-for-profit facilities, they're going to pay more typically than seniors who live in facilities run by housing management bodies, but also typically less than private for-profit providers. And then in the for-profit side, no rent controls. But because they're for-profit providers, they charge much more than housing management bodies and the not-for-profit providers, and typically offer a more higher-end living experience to go with that. So an example of Pemmican Lodge in Lethbridge, this is a housing management body space operated by the Green Acres Foundation. They're looking at an average rent of $1,264 inclusive of all meals, providing housekeeping, utilities, and is fully staffed 24/7, though that is non-medical staffing. We look at the not-for-profit model, so Covenant Health. This is Martha's House in Lethbridge. They offer one-bedroom floor plans. Pricing would include rent, utilities, housekeeping, maintenance, and meals. There's a pub on site. That is going to cost $2,979. Or if you put some money down, you can reduce your monthly cost. I just feel like I need to be honest with you guys there. So, why hide? Why hide from it? There you go. So again, that's obviously a higher price point than what the Green Acres facility is charging, but it is still sort of an all-inclusive sort of idea. And then conversely, Atria Retirement. So this is the View in Lethbridge. Pricing includes rent, utilities, housekeeping, and maintenance, provides no meals, and that pricing is about $3,500 a month. And this is information that's about a year and a half old, so those are probably adjusted a little bit since then. So why does this matter? Well, seniors housing is a broad term. There is not one thing called seniors housing. There are many different forms of dedicated seniors housing. So we break them into three chunks. But seniors also require other types of housing. So for many seniors, downsizing within the community in mixed-age housing is the goal. And so we've had some projects that have taken place in Coaldale, bordering on some condos that have gone bordering Parkside Lake, for example, that while not seniors housing specifically, do offer the type of housing that many folks that are starting to age are looking for, where maybe they're getting away from having ongoing yard maintenance. Maybe they're looking at something on a single floor, so they're not doing a lot of stairs, but otherwise they're still just sort of living in a space. They're getting out of maybe a two-story home. So that is part of the broader seniors housing matrix as well, just providing people with opportunities for perhaps a reduced maintenance lifestyle. So then, before we get to the question becomes what, reasonably speaking, is appropriate with respect to the property in question. So just to go back about 30 slides, forgive me as I aggressively push the button. If we look at the space as it is, the requirement for seniors housing, if we're looking at seniors housing in the truest sense of it, in those three categories that we talk about, realistically speaking, only the third category is likely to find itself within the seniors housing if we keep the area structure plan in place now, which is, say, private, for-profit seniors housing. And the reason I say that is that because this isn't municipally controlled land, the developer incurs costs in order to develop the space. It's reasonable to expect that they don't do that out of the goodness of their heart, but rather as a business venture where they are expecting to reap some sort of profit from it. The only group that can realistically afford to pay market price for land is the private for-profit entity. So a housing management body is not going to spend $1 million+ on an acre in order to acquire it because their rents simply don't justify recouping that rate. And I would say that is generally the case also with the faith-based not-for-profits. So it's not, and the municipality is not or has not indicated a position where they're interested in paying full market price in order to donate land for that purpose. And so really what we're asking the developer to do is to find a relatively narrow group of buyers in order to potentially develop this space. And so from administration's perspective, the question is it reasonable to expect that to continue indefinitely? And if the answer to that is yes, that's fine, then everything will remain in place. And the answer to that is no. The question really before council is the 5-year period where a potential buyer has been searched for enough of a time to tell us that the market for this lot for sale to that narrow group of potential buyers doesn't exist currently for Coaldale. So that's the question for council's consideration. The other thing that has changed relative to when this plan was adopted is this plan was adopted in 2021. Since this plan was adopted in 2021, we've had a number of announcements for seniors housing construction within the town of Coaldale. So we do have 2 projects in town which have indicated some interest in moving forward. We're not going to get into the details of those for the sake of those organizations, but it is reasonable to assume that we do have 30 to 50 additional units that are going to be coming online within the next 12, 24, 36 months, depending on construction timelines. So we do have a number of seniors housing units coming to market in the next period of time, and that should probably be, in my opinion, part of council's consideration as well. So with that, we will actually get to the end of the slide, and happy to take any questions from council, or if you'd like, the developer can speak to the issue first, and then we can do questions together.
Okay, thank you. And Karen, when you get a chance, can you email that
Absolutely.
point to council, please? I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions, comments? I'll ask the developer, Douglas Bergen, to come up and if he has anything to add.
Your worship, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Cameron did an amazing job of that, and so it'll make my life considerably easier. I would like to start, because I don't come before you often, to express my and many people who talk to me the approval of your leadership in this town. I don't say that tonight because I need a favorable vote. I say that because I've lived here for 60 years now. I know I don't look it. But I've been through a lot of councils and a lot of town managers, and I've been developing land now for almost 30 years. So my business is directly tied to your leadership and certainly that of your administration. And I can tell you that you are doing a remarkable job of building this town, and the skilled people that you have that serve us every day on administration are a pleasure to deal with and are very supportive and are, quite frankly, brilliant. So I just wanted to express my appreciation for your leadership. Cameron touched on the fact that we have been looking to develop this boutique seniors home for 7 years now. So in 2019, we brought the proposal to council for one of the lots in my Fieldstone Meadows development, where we had an operator who approached us. She was very familiar with the seniors housing here in town and serving seniors. She was very skilled. And so we were really excited about the fact that I can build you a building, but without that operator, it's not going to do me much good. Our proposal, as Cameron mentioned, was turned down in Fieldstone Meadows, and then administration worked with us on 2 other sites in town, one being near Taylor Mountain, across from Jenny Emery School, and the other one being near the Gem of the West Museum. Neither of those sites were favorable or worked out for us, and so we continued to sit on the sidelines and look for an opportunity. When we were rezoning this land, it became obvious that its proximity to the Mennonite Church and it was a good location, and so we proposed that seniors housing be placed on the corner. Since then, and unfortunately, the operator that we had in place lost her mother and was financially challenged after that point, after investing her nest egg in satisfying that family situation, that she had to decline the opportunity to develop this parcel alongside myself and my business partner, which was very, very unfortunate. So having lost the operator, and as Cameron mentioned, this would be a boutique seniors home as we see it, with 12 beds. And you can imagine that if your vacancy rate is, 10% is your tolerance, and if you would lose simply 1 bed, you would be down to an 8% vacancy rate. And heaven forbid another COVID would hit. Fees monthly would be north of $4,000 in our estimation for a high level of care, and to be competing with what Green Acres is proposing, or what they provide now. So we don't see an economic model moving forward to see this developed. However, all is not lost. The cottage style buildings that we're proposing, half of them are slab on grade units that are accessible for handicap without any stairs going in at all. We have had requests both from people that live in the Seasons, our manufactured housing development, as well as Station Grounds, that are looking for their next residential home, since they can no longer look after their yard and they can't do the stairs to get into their mobile home. They're saying, is there something in between? So although this isn't seniors housing, certainly this does accommodate individuals that are challenged mobility, but likewise would be a very affordable choice for them to move into. So we do regret not being able to provide this form of housing, because we have been looking to do this for the last 7 years. However, I've explained the hurdles that we have to cross, and this project is no longer viable as it was presented. And so we respectfully request your approval to rezone this property to these low profile. So they're of a lesser scale than the apartments. We intentionally moved the apartments into the second parcel on our development so that we wouldn't have 3-story buildings at the entrance. Mr. Beekman has approached me to buy this parcel to build 3-story apartments, and I declined because I want it to be lower scale coming into the development. So with that, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Douglas. Just wait one moment in case there's a question for you. I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions, comments? Councillor Pickering.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. Through to Douglas. I'm just kind of curious, you're building these, are they going to be rentals or are these going to be owned?
They will be rentals.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and through to Douglas, thank you for your kind words. I've had the opportunity to work with you on a number of your ideas over the years, and I was really looking forward to your concept for seniors housing, as many seniors in Coaldale have as well. And of course, over the years, many people have been asking me about seniors housing. So I was looking forward to this concept following through and developing. So I'm very disappointed to read and learn that your concepts are changing. So the last council meeting, I asked about the rezoning and how that's going to work, but also how these new suites were going to look as well. And I think you're reclassifying it to multifamily. That is correct. And with that, as Councillor Pickering has pointed out or asked about purchase or rent, are these suites going to be are these suites going to be able to be modified so that anyone can come in, regardless of age, to purchase, to rent, or or even to purchase a suite if they want?
They will be for rent. Half of them will be one flight of stairs up. The other half will be slab on grade. Interestingly enough, they could be converted to accessible units for wheelchair. But I was with Donna Koslovi this afternoon, and we were looking at a project that she's doing. And she says out of the 1,000 units that she rents, only one person out of 1,000 actually needs a wheelchair. She says others scoot around in them for comfort, but they can all get out of their wheelchair and move. That is a remarkable statistic. And the individual who needs the wheelchair doesn't have legs. So the number of people that actually need a wheelchair till the day they die is extremely slim by all accounts, Donna Koslovi. So we're not going to create handicap suites, so to speak, with, in other words, lowering the cabinets in the kitchen and knee space underneath the vanity. That's not going to happen. It would be relatively simple to do, but they will be suitable for anyone to occupy.
Okay, thank you. Just follow-up question to that. There will be elevators in each of these buildings then, or are they going to be, even for a 2-story building, you won't have elevators?
These are 18 units, 9 of which are on the ground, so slab on grade, and 9 of which are 1 floor up, so 1 flight of stairs. So there's no need to do an elevator.
Okay. I think that's all I have to. I think I think the major concept here is that many people want to continue living in Coaldale, and I think that that's from cradle to grave, as they say. And I think that that's important that all our residents be able to live out their lives here in Coaldale, and that's what we're looking forward to.
And we stand behind that concept for sure.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? So, Cameron, this is regarding Bylaw 929 to amend the revise the South Coaldale ASP. Is there any further discussion regarding Bylaw 930 that you want to bring up?
No, this bylaw 930 is just what so the area structure plan provides for the overview of what the intention is. Bylaw 930 just applies that R2 zoning following the area structure plan's adoption, if that were to occur.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll just ask one more time, is there any questions, comments on either Bylaw 929 or 930? Seeing none, I'm just going to ask if there's anybody in the gallery that has any questions, comments regarding these two public hearing items. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing at 5:35 p.m. Thank you very much. And Cameron, you can just stay there because you're up again here under bylaws and policies, agenda item 7.1. And this is regarding the area structure plan amendment bylaw 929-P-02-26 regarding the South Coaldale revised area structure plan, regarding seniors housing to multifamily housing, regarding second and third reading. Opportunity again for any follow-up questions from council. See none, could I get someone to entertain providing second reading to the area structure plan amendment bylaw 929-P-02-26 as presented? Councillor Reese makes that motion. Any further discussion? See none, I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. And finally, I need someone to entertain making a motion that council provide third and final reading to area structure plan amendment bylaw 929-P-02-26. Councillor Pickering makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. Moving on to agenda item 7.2 regarding land use bylaw amendment 930-P-02-26 regarding the rezoning of lot 1, block 1, plan 251, 1030 from residential R1A to residential multi-unit R2. And this is regarding second and third reading. Are there any questions, comments on this item? Seeing none, could I get someone to entertain, make a motion that council provides second reading of land use bylaw amendment 930-P-02-26 as presented? Councillor Avery makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. And finally, looking for someone to make a motion that council provide third and final reading of land use bylaw amendment 930-P-02-26 as presented. Deputy Mayor Beekman makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much, Cameron.
Thank you very much.
Douglas, thank you very much. Nice meeting you, Casey. Take care. Moving on to agenda item 7.3, the borrowing bylaw 932-B-03-26 regarding all three readings. Regarding water rights, we have our Chief Financial Officer, Tim Koba, presenting. So, Tim, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. So the watering, so the item before you tonight is the borrowing bylaw for the water rights. This item was included in the operating budget, 2026 operating budget. Now the purpose of the bylaw is to authorize administration to take out a line of credit or a term loan. This has to be a short-term loan with ATB Financial, not to exceed 5 years. The bylaw states not to exceed 8% either. We have budgeted for approximately 4.2% for the interest rate, and that's the current rate that we get on our line of credit. So we're just assuming that with the term loan, the interest will be more favorable. So with that, this bylaw is being presented in accordance with Section 257 of the Municipal Government Act for short-term capital financing. This section states that a capital debenture that is less than 5 years does not require public advertising. And the hope here is, or the request is, that Council approve all 3 readings of the bylaw and provide unanimous consent.
Thank you. And could I possibly, for viewers at home and in attendance, could we get somebody from administration to give us a Reader's Digest version regarding the water rights purchase?
Yeah, if you want to speak on that.
Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you. So what we're proposing to do here is to purchase water license. And so water is a surprisingly complicated subject, as I'm sure Council is aware. So for viewers at home or anyone listening, we receive water from the City of Lethbridge. So we receive treated water from the City of Lethbridge. And so the City of Lethbridge invests hundreds of millions of dollars into preparing infrastructure to pull water out of the river, clean it, and send it in a pipe our way so that our residents and businesses can turn on the taps and have a drink and take a shower and all the rest of that. We purchase that water from the City of Lethbridge, who treat the water and maintain the infrastructure to send it to us. However, the amount of water we are able to buy is not infinite. So the City of Lethbridge pulls water out of the river for these purposes and serves a number of communities themselves, I believe areas of Lethbridge County, some of the other towns in the area. All of those communities have their own licenses which tell us how much water they are allocated for their purposes. And so Coaldale has water license in place that provides for us to pull a certain amount of water for our purposes. That number is capped. And so there is the potential that we could reach a day where the ability for us to either grow from a population perspective or to add another business to town would be limited. And we have seen communities, Okotoks sort of most famously in the last decade or so, that has run into these constraints. Part of the struggle is that is not very often where new water licenses created. The water licenses that are out there are the licenses that are out there, and they allow for that pulling. And so they can also be very difficult with respect to their transferability, what they can be used for, where they can be pulled from, all the rest of that. We've been provided with an opportunity to purchase some rights that we understand are transferable, that will fundamentally increase the town's overall allocation of water by approximately 10%. These types of things. This isn't necessarily something we need today, but it's also not something that we can necessarily go out and get when we're in a position where we need it. Right. And so what we want to do from a sound management practice perspective is make sure that, you know, if we have enough water for 15,000 people, that we don't get to 4,996 before we start searching the market for these things to come available, because they're not always or even often available. And so we had an opportunity to purchase this here. The purchase price is in line with what the market for these rights has been going for recently. we're confident that we're getting a reasonable value for it, and we felt it was a good opportunity for the town to add to that allocation, and that is our intention moving forward.
Thank you, Cameron. That was explained very well. Councillor Avery has a question or comment.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions because I'm not really familiar with water and water rights. So my understanding right now is our water rights would be with the St. Mary's, the south, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then it dumps into the Old Man, so then the city can treat our water from our St. Mary's water rights.
Correct.
These water rights that we're proposing is it a flow into this same water system, or is it going to be something in the future? We're going to be looking at government and saying, "Oh, this is going in the Bow, and it's in the wrong basin." Like, I need to make sure in my mind that we're purchasing from the right water basins.
Thank you for the question. So the way the purchase contract is worded is that the transfer, the payment is based on when they actually come into our possession, and they can only come in our possession if we can actually use them. So we do have some protections in place there. But yes, these are technically under the guidance of a different irrigation district. I believe there was LNID that was the overseer of these particular units. But in discussions with the LNID and other agents dealing in this space, they are fully transferable. One of the things that's interesting is that in the event of a drought, for example, there's all these different licenses that exist, and if the provincial government decides, oh, there's a drought, we're turning off the tap, so to speak, it's based on the oldest licenses get to pull first, and all the rest of that. These are relatively old, so that's exciting for us. And also, the water needs to be used by, I believe it's the end of August. But again, that just goes into the mix. We've had conversations with the people that manage the City of Lethbridge water system about this issue. And so they're confident that these rights that we're talking about here are going to be effective for the town of Coaldale and are going to serve our purposes.
One more follow-up. So if we purchase these this summer and we don't need them for 5 years, 10 years, what's the return on investment? You know, we're paying 4.6% interest on our $1.9 million. So what's our return on investment for this?
So we are looking at opportunities to monetize the rights over a period of time. So we've talked about potentially finding a long-term lease opportunity. We understand there's some legal challenges associated with that in terms of how rights are tracked. But we've also talked about potentially selling them with an option to buy them back so that we can make sure that we can get them when we need them. So we are actively pursuing opportunities, to make sure that we're not actually flowing out the cash until we need them. But the flip side of that is that while there is an interest cost, a potential interest cost associated with using the rights where we don't need them this immediate term, that is true. But the flip side of that is that there's a tremendous cost associated with running out of license and then needing to take 2 or 3 years combing the market to find them until an opportunity comes up. So in both cases, you run a bit of a risk. But no, in this case, we're going to do everything we can to find a way to minimize the cost or even potentially profit a little bit from owning the asset. So they certainly do not depreciate. I haven't seen them get cheaper year over year in my lifetime.
Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. And due to Tim, I believe that Councillor Avery asked this the last time this came up to our attention, but I just wanted to touch on it one more time just to ensure that we're being mindful of the debt limit for the town of Coaldale, and just want to make sure this isn't going to affect us for the next 5 years.
Through the chair to Councillor Reese, thank you for the question. The taking out the short-term debenture for the water rights shouldn't affect our debt limits or debt servicing capacity in any significant way. I believe our current debt limit or our current debt as of the end of 2025 was around 19 million. and I believe our debt capacity is closer to 1.5 times our operating revenues, which is closer to 50 million. So there's still, around 30 million times 1.5. So we should still have sufficient capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And speaking in favor of the borrowing bylaw, I think that this is really a critical time for us as well as for our region with regards to water rights. And so my question would be to Cam and how you would manage over the next 5 years with these water rights if we have we'll use some of that for our own, of course, and then the rest would be up for lease. I would recommend not for sale, but for lease or rent or however you want to expand that.
Clear, with respect to sale. There we go. When I talk about sale, the sale would be a legal formality. It would be sale in a way that we can immediately buy it back. So functionally a lease. It's just a question of satisfying the legal requirements associated with this type of product. So yes, certainly this is not something that our intention is to flip. We are going to need these eventually, certainly with the rate that we're growing right now, maybe sooner than we would have anticipated 5 years ago. So we definitely want to make sure that we have access to them when we need them, and we're going to be cautious with respect to how we paper any deal with respect to them in the short term.
Just one final question, Mayor. Are the water rights, are they based on an acre per acre price?
They are. So they're based on the most recent transactions within the area, just sort of the average transaction that we've seen over the last couple of years. So that's it. I don't recall what the exact number is, but it's 130 acre feet that we were purchasing, which allows for approximately 1,500 people based on our current usage. We also have the potential to perhaps institute policies over the next few years that would maybe reduce some of that usage, potentially stretch the rights we have a little further. So that's something we're going to pursue as well.
Councillor Pickering.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn, through to Cam. So I know this is definitely on the Old Man Basin, this water rights.
Sure.
I'm out of there. So on a year of a ration, is there a chance that we can have that set up that we can use that first before we use from our other basin?
Yeah. So to be clear, I'm learning about water rights through some of this process as well. But the discussion I had with folks at the city who are experts who deal in this type of thing quite consistently was that these particular units that we're looking at will serve very well in terms of being they're relatively old, and so they're very unlikely to be affected by drought restrictions, and they go relatively late into the year. And we can also, when we're using them from the city, what we do is we use the ones that expire first in order to sort of make sure that we're stretching things out. And so the position that the folks that we had contacted that work in this space had indicated was that these were very positive rights with respect to how we can allocate them. We have the ability in our discussions with the city to sort of pick and choose what we're using and when. And so we have the capacity to do that through our internal management with them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Last opportunity. Questions, comments from council for either presenter? Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
Moving on to resolutions. I'm looking for someone to be willing to provide first reading of borrowing bylaw 932-B-03-26 regarding water rights as presented. Councillor Pickering makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. And that motion is carried with Councillor Avery voting against. Now I'm looking for someone to sponsor second reading of borrowing bylaw 932-P-03-26. Councillor Chapman. I'll call for the vote on second reading. And that motion is carried again with Councillor Avery voting against. Now I'm looking for someone to sponsor unanimous consent to hold all 3 readings in one meeting for borrowing bylaw 932-B-03-26, again regarding water rights. Councillor Reese makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. Our municipal clerk indicated that we need a manual vote for the unanimous consent. So Councillor Reese is making that vote. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. And finally, need someone to sponsor third and final reading of borrowing bylaw 932-B-03-26, again regarding water rights. Councillor Chapman makes that motion. I don't see any further questions. I'll call for the vote. And that motion is carried again with Councillor Avery voting against. Thank you, Tim. Moving on to agenda item 7.4 regarding road closure bylaw 931-P-02-26 regarding first reading. And we have our Director of Corporate and Strategic Initiatives, Spencer Croyle, presenting. Spencer, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening to you and Council. I'm going to start with image, if we could bring it up on the screen, Lena, that just shows the area of road right-of-way in question for bylaw 931. So this is Canal Way, and I believe, if the other mapping is right, we have Canal Way on the northerly east to west run, heading south, and then Canal Street for the last leg of east to west run ending in the cul-de-sac, as we can see on the screen. This road right-of-way is not proposed to disappear entirely. It's simply a matter of resurveying and making a minor adjustment as requested by the developer of the neighborhood. So all that to say, ultimately what's going to happen with the road closure itself is this portion of road right-of-way would disappear, and then it would reappear at the same time through a process with the Land Titles Office, moving the entire east-west portion of road about 4.5 meters further south. So it would create longer lot depths for Block 9 when those lots are to be created. And then it would also see the east-west portion of this southerly area of the road to be recreated, shrink in right-of-way width about 2.5 meters. The surface of the road itself, so the pavement surface with parking lanes and driving lanes, would remain 10 meters in width, but the road right-of-way itself would be reduced by 2.5 meters. So as Council is aware, the requirement to close a road is that, or a road right-of-way, is that we appear before Council with a bylaw. We have first reading granted if Council so wishes. That goes up to the province, and then once they've done what they need to do with having the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors approve the bylaw, it comes back for second and third reading. In the midst of all that, we've already circulated to utilities companies, most of which we've heard back from, and we're working through that process, as well as advertising for the public hearing, which will commence shortly after first reading is granted for the bylaw.
Thank you. I'll open it up for any questions, comments from Council. Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Spencer. So by narrowing that road by 2 meters, are we making it too congested in there for vehicles to maneuver? For example, our fire trucks are getting larger, and are they going to be able to maneuver down the street?
Certainly. Thank you for that question, Councillor Avery. In response to that, I can provide context in the sense that the road surface itself for Canal Way and Canal Way again and Canal Street is all going to remain at 10 meters in width. It's just the right-of-way itself that shrinks a little bit, and so slightly less room to include some of the other elements such as street lighting and sidewalks and pathways. We do have Jason Siemens here as well if you'd like a more technical answer to what might happen with other elements of the road right-of-way that would shrink other than the surface itself.
Okay, thanks, Spencer. So as a follow-up then, if we approve this, then there'll be no street lighting and no sidewalks in there, or sidewalks on one side of the street?
I think if I may, I might invite Jason up just to speak to the technicalities of that. I don't believe that's the case, but we'll get it right from the technical expert himself.
The question, I believe we still have space for both sides of monolithic sidewalk and street lighting. The design width is still consistent with the City of Lethbridge specifications, which we follow too. I would suggest the initial width was taken originally as more of a general approach. However, 17 and a half meters, now that the design is in place, the types of roads are established, the traffic volumes, etc., is still appropriate and meets our design standards. The 20 meters just provided more flexibility through the design process. We've established that we don't think we need that. 17 and a half is fine for this local road.
Thank you. Jason, just stay there in case there's another question for you. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And through to Spencer, if I may, just follow up on Councillor Avery's questions with regards to that that Canal Street particularly, even though it's a road closure right now. The width to me remains a question. I'd like, obviously we've had experience with other streets where they have been so narrow. So at the farthest east end of it, it becomes a dead end. Would there be enough room for bigger vehicles like garbage trucks and fire trucks and such to turn around in?
Through the chair, Councillor Chapman, another great question. I think I'll probably turn that one over to Jason as well.
And thank you, Mayor. And maybe just if you might add to your response, Jason, the west corner there, it's sort of a very sharp 90 degree corner rather than a rounded corner. If I'm looking at this picture, would that be something that you would revisit later on as to kind of curving it, or would that stay as a right angle corner like that?
Yeah, so the intent there would be to eventually extend west. So right now it'll just be built as a corner. Should the next phase proceed per the subdivision approval, should that area ever continue to the west, additional lots be brought online, then it would turn to a T intersection, but be constructed as a corner right now. And just further to the previous question, so the road width remains the same. The only thing we're changing is shrinking the boulevard, which still meets for these instances, we follow the City of Lethbridge specifications. We're still meeting that. So just to dive a little bit further into that, for 11 meter, the City of Lethbridge design standards provide for two road widths, 11 or 9. 11 is the higher volume, 9 is the lower volume. In the past, we've tried to stay away from the 9s. We've seen instances where we didn't necessarily like that. I think there's been previous discussions that even at the council level, we didn't necessarily like that. So we moved away from the lower volumes. We go with 10. So for an 11 meter width, you require an 18 and a half meter right of way. And for a 9, you require 16 and a half. So at 10, the 17 and a half is still meeting design standards, still has meets the boulevard widths, allows for the sidewalks and the street lighting. And I would suggest that the 20 was just taking more generally. The subdivision application was complete well in advance of detailed design, so that's just kind of a general width that's quite common to see, not necessarily required for the cross section we're constructing, if that helps.
Thank you. Open it up one last opportunity. Questions, comments? Seeing none, could I get someone to entertain making a motion that council provide first reading of road closure bylaw 931-P-02-26? Deputy Mayor Beekman makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. And that vote is carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jason. And Spencer is going to be up again here under new business agenda item 8.1, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities grants, regarding a request for council resolution in support of applications. And again, we have our Director of Corporate and Strategic Initiatives, Spencer Croyle, presenting. Whenever you're ready, Spencer.
Thank you again, Mayor. So as you mentioned, the FCM has a grant stream available that would be suitable for the town's needs in the near term. It's through the Growing Canada's Community Canopies Initiative. And the reason that would suit our needs at this point in time is that we have an urban forestry plan dating back to 2009 as a community that provided things like preferred species planting list, a list of all existing trees in town at that point in time. And so that provided a bit of inventory of trees that we had available and the condition of many of these trees, things like that. It also provided some other recommendations for how we could steward and grow our canopy as well into the future. With that in mind, 2009 is a fair distance from now. And so with a lot of new grants coming online that would actually help fund the cost of trees themselves and landscape plans and the capital and operating costs required to grow and care for these trees, it would be prudent for us to have a new urban forestry strategy or plan that could help amplify how and when we make application for grants that would pay for trees themselves. In addition to that, it would give us a current understanding of our tree inventory, an updated list of preferred species, and that could relate to things like in times of water shortage, what species might be more suitable than if we had to, say, irrigate all the time forevermore the trees that we have. So that's one of the recommendations that we be able to use this grant to pay for up to 90% of the cost of an urban forestry strategy to be created for the town. And that would primarily be done by third-party consultants. And that flows right into the second piece, or the second grant opportunity that's available to us now, which is for trees, the actual cost of trees themselves and some of the other hard costs associated with trees. That's a tree planting grant also available through FCM, which would pay up to 50% of the cost of trees that we may need to acquire for any type of publicly funded tree planting project in the town. There's a total maximum lifetime benefit that we can receive from that grant, which is $10 million. So that's probably focused more on larger communities, but all that to say that it would be able to fund at 50% some of the tree planting endeavors that we hope to accomplish in the next couple of years, for instance, at Centennial Park and other locations around town. The total ask regarding support from council for these two grant applications would be an upset limit of about $12,000, and that would be based on a couple of quotes that we've received for the urban forestry strategy, and then any dollars that we would spend on actually acquiring trees would just be, we would double our money in terms of being able to afford 50% more trees for actual tree acquisition related to projects, as already mentioned, like Centennial Park and things of that nature. So I think I'll leave it there for any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from council? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Spencer, for bringing this forward. I'm very intrigued and supportive of this thought process. I think back in 2009, we had about 900 trees that they had figured out was sort of the roundabout inventory, and so today that would have really grown. I'm just curious with your thought process and whether with the growth in Coaldale, whether these trees would be specific, say, to our lands, for example, our pathways or boulevards, areas in town that would be town property, as opposed to properties that developers are needing trees for.
Through the chair to Councillor Chapman, great question. Obviously, we would want to focus on our own natural assets, the trees that would remain on town property. However, it would be an interesting question to ask of the third-party consultants and the developers themselves, maybe, to say, would there be benefit to having some direction or guidance in the urban forestry strategy that could focus on private property as well?
Just one final question, if I may, Mayor. Obviously, there'll be some landscaping costs involved here, and I know that when the first inventory was brought forward, that there was a number of trees that were suffering because of landscaping issues and the types of soils that they were growing in, and so I think that would probably be a cost that you would have to review as well.
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Chapman, thank you for the comment.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? So in speaking with our municipal clerk and with Spencer, they came up with a housekeeping motion that'll cover off everything that was discussed. And I'm going to read it out. And if there's anybody that wants to sponsor that or amend it, I'll read it out the way it is now. That council pass a resolution in support of the town's application to the grants available through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Growing Canada's Community Canopies Initiative, such as but not limited to the urban forestry plans and studies opportunity and tree planting opportunity. And further, that this resolution is passed with the acknowledgement that the benefits of the work represented through both grant opportunities is the ability to manage and expand the town of Coaldale's urban forest canopy and the natural assets represented by the community's trees. Did I capture that okay? Is there anybody willing to sponsor that one? Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. I'll sponsor that.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions, comments, I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. Moving on to agenda item 8.2, Spencer, you're still up, and this is regarding a subdivision approval time extension request regarding SUB 2023-005.
You again, Mayor. Again, we'll start with a quick reference to an image that we'll bring up on screen right away here. So the areas outlined in green are what exists today of the subdivided lots for the Canal Crossing neighborhood. We have the lots to the north, including larger multifamily lots on the northernmost portion of the plan area, and additional lots to the south, the area on the far northeast corner of the development for the storm pond, a small number of single-family residential lots, and then an additional MR/PUL lot in the block 1 noted on the very south end of the area of the neighborhood. There are also 16 lots, or 15 lots, my apologies, shown in blue. And the reason that these are a different color is because everything was approved as part of sub 2023-005. However, only the lots outlined in green were actually registered with land titles. At the time of registration, the developer chose not to register the lots shown in blue because of market conditions. So in order for them to proceed with these lots, which have been approved by the Municipal Planning Commission or the Subdivision Authority, they do need to have a subdivision approval time extension approved by council. They've indicated by way of their request to have an extension for that approval that they're ready to move forward with these lots. So that is why this has appeared before council this evening. In terms of decision options, if there was any reason to want to delay a decision to approve the time extension or consider not approving it, these lots are shown as per the area structure plan, and it would really just prolong the inevitable in the sense that the Planning Commission or our subdivision authority would have to then reapprove them because they do meet the requirements of the higher order statutory plan that guides the development of the neighborhood. There was reference to 6 additional lots alluded to by the developer west of the lots shown in the blue outline. And they've been reminded that they would have to make a separate application for a new subdivision to obtain any further lots than have been approved but not registered yet within the area outlined in blue.
Thank you. Any questions, comments for our presenter? The motion options are part of your agenda package. Would someone care to sponsor one of those three options, please? Option 1 is that council approve a 1-year time extension request for SUB 2023-005 for the 15 lots that were not finalized within the time limits set by the initial subdivision approval, or that option 2, that council defer decision to a future meeting and request additional information, or 3, that council deny the request for a 1-year subdivision time extension. Anybody care to sponsor one of those? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve the request for 1 year of subdivision extension.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Spencer. Moving on to agenda 8.3 regarding Rehoboth annual 2026 golf tournament request for a sponsorship. And we have our municipal clerk, Lana Anthony, presenting. Lana, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. The organizers of Rehoboth's 31st annual golf classic has reached out to council to request their participation again in their golf tournament in May. They did have a slight increase from the last sponsorship last year. Last year was $1,175 and this year is $1,190. The report before you offers some options to submit a team of four players at a cost of $1,190, or one player at a cost of $500, or that if council so chooses to decline the invitation. I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you. Any questions, comments for our municipal clerk? So option items number 1, that we sponsor for the full amount, $1,190 for 4 players, or we can do option number 2, 1 player for $500, or number 3, we decline the request. Anybody care to sponsor one of those? Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. Based on past years, I'll sponsor that we sponsor 4 players for a cost of $1,190.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm voting against this motion. It's not because I don't support Rehoboth and their efforts. It's because we do have a golf course in our town that you would think they would be booking rather than taking the funds into a Lethbridge golf course. So that's my reasoning behind voting against it.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, there's a motion on the floor by Councillor Reese. I'll call for the vote. And that motion is carried with Councillors Pickering and Avery voting against. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 8.4, the Coaldale Library Board Citizen Member Appointment Confirmations. And again, we have our municipal clerk, Lana Anthony, presenting.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. The Library Act, I'll start at the beginning of my report. So the purpose of my report is to properly align the term ending dates for 3 of our citizen members that were appointed by council in the October 28th, 2024 council meeting, the organizational council meeting. The Libraries Act specifies that terms cannot exceed 3 years in length, and the 3 people that are listed were within that term, but we are asking that they have requested that council properly align the council calendar along with the Library Act that specifies their term ending dates. So 2 of the persons listed ending date is October 24th of 2027, and 1 person is October 26th of 2026. And the reason for the term ending dates as staggering is that so that when the committee term ends, that not everyone is leaving on the same day and that there is some overlap of their knowledge and experience to the committee. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. I'll open it up to members of council. Questions, comments? Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Lana. Appreciate your work in this. Have we written a letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs yet and asked them to get their act together and change that to a 4-year rather than the 3-year? Because it was 3-year because previous to 2013, it was 3-year terms for elected officials. So that's why they had the library or any of these other boards set at 3 years. So I think if no other municipalities initiated, I believe we should look at sending the minister a letter saying that they need to readjust their act to align with what the province is doing.
Thank you for the question. I appreciate the position on that, and I'm happy to follow up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. One last opportunity. Questions, comments? Seeing none, I'm looking for someone to sponsor the motion that council appoint the following citizens to the Coaldale Library Board for the term ending dates as noted. Abigail Shakespeare, term ending October 24th, 2027. Virginia Nelson, term ending October 24th, 2027. And Robert Murdoch, term ending October 26th, 2026. Does anybody care to sponsor that? Deputy Mayor Beekman makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much, Lana. Moving on to departmental reports, agenda item 9.1. We have our Director of Protective Services, Clayton Rutberg, presenting on the Protective Services 2025 annual report. Clayton, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and good evening. Just as a note too, some of the slides might not match up exactly with the book. They've just been formatted a little bit better for layout on the PowerPoint as well, but it should be relatively close. So 2025 was again another busy year for the Emergency Services Department. Starting in the beginning of the year with a large recruitment as well, getting some of our newer members going. We had a fair high number of calls as well moving us in. So we did have a few new spots to fill again coming into 2026 this year. As you can see, we had 6 spots there towards the bottom of our org chart that we filled in a recent recruitment. And to note as well, our numbers of applicants are quite high for the number of openings that we do have in with our 40 volunteers. We had 16 applications for a total of 6 spots that went through our interviews, physicals, and then ultimately we selected the best 6 candidates to fill those positions. Response information. So I'll just breeze over it on this slide because a few of our other slides go into each one of these a little bit further. But as you can see, medical calls being our top number with alarms and motor vehicle collisions following as a close second and third. And again, we'll kind of hit some of these as we go through, but that's just a brief overview of the call types. So looking back 10 years, I went a little bit further than we do typically go just to show that growth in the department. We have had quite a bit of growth with an average annual increase of 8% over that 10 years with all of our calls combined, splitting out our medical and our fire-related calls. We've had an 11% growth in our non-medical side and only a 7% growth in our medical. So we did see that start to slow a little bit post-COVID. We've seen a huge growth in that COVID timeline of our medical calls, and they didn't really slow down after that, but we haven't seen quite as much growth. As you can see with our percentage, we're getting a lot closer. We're still close to that 50-50. But some of the earlier years that we looked on, we were doing quite a few more medicals than everything else. So just looking at the last 5 years, and specifically the growth over the last year, so we did see a 7% growth over 2024 and a 4% growth in our medical responses from 2024, with an 11% growth in our fire-related calls.
And Clayton, just I'll ask council if they have any questions during the presentation to let me know so we can ask at that time.
And it is divided in the sections again too, so emergency services, municipal enforcement, and emergency management. So I'll try to remember to pause there as well just to double check. So our week, kind of breaking down, we're fairly evenly spread out with our busiest day of the week being Thursdays. But most notable is time of day, and I think a lot of it coincides when people are going to work and people are typically home by 7 o'clock. So 65% of our call volume actually falls between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. So kind of that peak hour during the day is the busier time for us, and that's kind of throughout the week. Even on weekends, we see that 7 to 7 being a little bit busier. Again, people are out driving around. That's where we get more motor vehicle collisions and that type of stuff as well. Response time. So this is broken down by area. So our average response time in town is 7 minutes and 43 seconds, and that's from the time the 911 call is picked up until the time the first appropriate apparatus gets on scene. With our Lethbridge County primary, so pretty much everything up to that Broxburn area, 14 minutes and 11 seconds, and then everything else kind of west of Broxburn in that expanded territory, 17 minutes and 24 seconds. Overlapping calls. So this is when we have at least 1 to 2 two calls going on at the same time. We did have a total of 89 calls that overlapped in 2025 with 82 separate occurrences. 7 of those happened to be 3 calls going on at the same time. With our overlapping calls, the average time that our calls actually overlap is 11 minutes, with the longest being 34. And the majority of overlaps are either 2 medicals at the same time or alarms and medicals occurring at the same time. Although there are other overlaps, those are just kind of the 2 top ones where we see that overlap. Mutual aid. And so you'll note a bit of a different statistic on this slide. This slide's looking at mutual aid as pretty much anytime we bring in another department or anytime we provide service to another department. It's not quite the exact same numbers that we see on mutual aid on the other call slides. Those ones are more related to billing. So some of these mutual aid calls are within Lethbridge County, where we are not billing that service back to them based on our current agreement. Not all of these calls are separate as well. So our mutual aid received, if we had one large call where we had 3 different departments helping out with a couple tenders or stuff like that, that mutual aid received may only be on 7 or 8 calls, but that's every time we brought another unit in. So our call volume by location. Again, the majority of our call volume being in town, but you'll see that, especially when we get to the hours and stuff like that, as per typical, we do have a lot of medicals in town, so that kind of evens out our hours when we look at that later. And then kind of that split between Lethbridge County, where our calls at, we're fairly even between our primary response district and that expanded area. Time on call. So this is looking basically at the time that we're there from the start of the call to the finish of the call, and it's not taking into account how many apparatus are there and how many people are there. So you can see the majority of our time, or the higher percentage, 52%, is within Lethbridge County's area, whereas 46% of that is in the town of Coaldale, and then 2% of that to mutual aid. So our apparatus hours, this is where they grow a little bit from the time on call. So with the time on call, we might be there for an hour, but if we have 2 trucks there, that equates out to 2 apparatus hours. So again, our our apparatus hours are significantly higher in Lethbridge County than in the town in 2025. And again, a lot of this comes out to longer duration incidents, motor vehicle collisions or fires that are a lot longer duration than what the calls are that we happen to be responding to in the town of Coaldale. And then finally, the last piece is our personnel hours. So again, if we had 1 hour time on call and 2 trucks there, that'd be 2 hours. That might equate out to 12 personnel hours if there's 6 people on each one of those trucks. So that's kind of how that computes out. And again, a higher percentage in Lethbridge County just due to that total call volume. So looking at our medical responses and a few of the key statistics with that, 76% of our medical responses are in the town of Coaldale. So again, quite a higher percentage. With that, last year we had a total of 35 code red calls, which is where we don't have an in-town ambulance and we're waiting for that ambulance outside of town. That wasn't a extremely high number compared to what we would normally see in a year. It was 8% of our medical call volume, which is actually one of the lower ones in the last few years there. But what I would say, again, we haven't brought any statistics from the beginning of this year, but we noticed quite a change in 2026. We've already done 16 code red calls so far this year, up to today. So only in March, and we've pretty much already done half of what we did last year. So we could see that number climb. If things continue, again, it wouldn't be abnormal to see something similar to, maybe not quite as bad as what we've seen there in 2022, but it would be up there if that continues. And again, our medical call severity, so just looking at the different types of calls that we go to. And if council remembers from our level of service policy, our Delta and Echoes are the automatic calls that we get sent on. And a lot of the Alpha Bravo Charlies are either because of that time dependent, there's no ambulance around, and or they've requested help for a lift assist or something like that. So the majority of our calls fall into that Delta Echo category, which is our more severe medical calls. So most of these, just looking at our breakdown of where our calls happen. So our alarms, again, one of our higher call volumes, 111 of these in town, 52 are within Lethbridge County, and 1 mutual aid. The majority of these are single alarms. We don't have a super high amount of repeats, but some of our repeat offenders are quite high with their numbers. You can see that primary district. That primary district probably makes, of Lethbridge County, is probably made up of maybe 2 or 3 businesses that we see that number of alarms from within the county, whereas we don't see quite as much of that repeat within the town. We do see some of that, but not quite as much. Motor vehicle collisions. Again, a significant amount of these in Lethbridge County, and they typically take up more of our time within the county as compared to the town. So 66% of those being in the county, with 33% being in town. And again, our in-town ones tend to be quite a bit shorter. Structure fires, it was a busier year within the county. We've seen a bit of a dip within the number that we had in town this year. So 65% of our structure fires occurring in the county, with 22% in the town, and then 13% or 3 mutual aid ones. Our wildland fires, again, we don't have a lot of this hazard within town. We do have some, as you can see by our one locally. The majority of the rest of those in Lethbridge County, with 1 mutual aid for that. Our outside fires, so this differs a little bit from our wildland fires. Our wildland fires are typically classified more as a grass fire or stubble fire, whereas our outside fires can be anything from a garbage can to anything else that may have caught on fire, haystack, that type of stuff. So again, the majority of them being within Lethbridge County and a handful in town. Authorized controlled burns. So these are calls that we've received that dispatch is unsure if it's a permitted burn or not a permitted burn, where we've responded and actually find out that it is a permitted burn and they are operating within their permit. So they're not doing anything they shouldn't be doing, where we cancel and come home. So we do have a handful of those a year, again, majority of them in Lethbridge County. Our citizen and public assist. So these are calls where we see stuff. Somebody comes home and their basement's full of water, or a tree fell on their car, those types of things, where people don't quite know what to do, but they call 911. So we end up responding to those. Again, more significant number in town than what we see in the county, but we do get a few of those here. Vehicle fires, this year we didn't have any in town. All of our 9 vehicle fires were in Lethbridge County, kind of spread out throughout the districts. Carbon monoxide, and these are calls where it is an actual carbon monoxide call. If we've gone to a carbon monoxide call and it's a false alarm, they're lumped in with our false alarms. So these are ones that actually have carbon monoxide readings and have an issue to be resolved when we're there. Hazmat calls, so any types of fuel cleanups. A lot of our hazmat calls actually this last year within Lethbridge County were related to ammonia. So just those types. We don't see a lot of these throughout the year, but we do see a handful. Illegal burns. So these would be actual burns that we respond to, that we get paged out for, that either don't have a permit and shouldn't have been burning, or had a permit and they're not following the conditions on their permit, and we end up having to extinguish the fire. So again, more in Lethbridge County, and we do see that a bit throughout the year than in town. Typically in town, they're related to a pit somehow, and not usually an actual controlled burn. Most of our controlled burns in town are fairly good at getting their permits and following those conditions. Electrical hazards, so if we have power lines down, things of that nature, we can get called to those as well. Again, with the majority of those being in Lethbridge County. And then finally, rescues, so non-motor vehicle collisions. Think of this more as the technical rescue type of situation, where somebody might be an ice rescue or things like that. So we only responded to 3 of those throughout 2025, and all of them in town. So looking at a few of our training highlights, almost 3,000 regular training hours throughout the year, and that doesn't include our course hours. That's just our regular training hours over all our members throughout our training nights, or our joint training nights that we do with some of our mutual aid partners as well. And a few certification courses that we've run in 2025 to make sure our firefighters are trained. We also do quarterly competency focus, where we try and hit some critical skills that we've identified, and this is just a snapshot where we expect our members to at least hit these quarterly competencies twice a year. So we offer them each quarter, but they have to hit it twice throughout the year to make sure they stay up to date on our training. Looking at our fire prevention, so mainly inspections in this one. Last year we had 231 inspections in town, with 38 in Lethbridge County. So you'll see a bit of a reduction from what we were hitting the year before, just with the change in our contract being a complaint-based system now. But still a high number of them within town. Our fire investigations, again, we've seen we had a lot more fires within the county than we did in the town last year, but 19 investigations completed in the county, and 8 in town. Pre-planning. So this chart just kind of shows the generic number of pre-plans that our guys complete when we go out and do inspections, or if we just go for facility tours. But it's also complete and updated now. We've had a couple of years with our software, our records management software, so we're getting a lot of update plans as well when we go back, updating contacts, updating maps, those types of things into our system, so we have that information on hand. And that one's got the wrong title, but our fire prevention with our plan reviews. So we do a few plan reviews for our facilities that have to have emergency response plans to make sure that they have the right information in there, update us with the response plans so we have that on hand to make sure that if we do go there for an event, we know what we're walking into. And then a handful of other prevention activities. So one of the numbers, again, a little bit up from last year, is the estimated number of people that we interacted with in 2025. And it doesn't necessarily count some of the events like the big truck petting zoo where we just get inundated with numbers. This is more our tours and stuff where we know we have 35 kids coming in that we keep track of. So we had roughly around 1,021 individuals that we interacted with in some manner for fire prevention, plus the large events that we attend as well. And then finally on the fire side, Prairie Winds and Fire and Emergency Services Academy. This year, we are in a medical first responder year. So last year was a fire year. So this year, they're just starting to wrap up the medical first responder program. So we have 12 students that are completing that as well this year. So that's kind of the fire section.
Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Clayton. Any update on the new engine rescue?
Yes. So they have the cab and chassis there. We're just getting ready to go out for a mid-build to go through the cab. It should be delivered very early in 2027. Just based on their timelines, it's not going to take them near as long to do the build as they thought they would. So we did get invoiced for half, as was the agreement for cab and chassis. So that got done here a little bit earlier this year. But we'll start to see a lot more updates. Right now, it's just kind of a frame and a cab. So probably as we come back for maybe Q2, if they've started their other work, we might have some pictures and stuff as a part of our report. But underway, and a lot of their engineering stuff's completed. We just have to keep it moving along.
And Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. Through to Chief, just 2 questions here. First of all, your mutual aid with the town of Sterling, is that, I've seen it occurring a number of times here. Is that something that seems to be ongoing? And do they have mutual aid from Raymond or any other municipality with their situations?
Yeah, so they do have mutual aid from other departments within the County of Warner as well. So most of those mutual aids, other than maybe 1 or 2 that have been in their town, any other ones in their county for sure, there's usually been 3 or 4 departments there. We've also had a couple this year where they've had a couple large fires as well that they've called us in on.
Thank you. My second question with regards to your code reds, and I appreciate your concerns here. I think that those numbers are concerning to me as well. Is there something that you see council addressing through a letter or something to address that fact that it's seeming to not get out of control? I know I see a couple of ambulances in town all the time, but I didn't realize that there was that number of code reds.
Yeah, I think something along those lines would be good to address it from council's perspective, from a lobbying perspective, back to emergency health services on that. A lot of it is our ambulance flexing to other communities or being shut down, pushing that to be other ambulances responding in. So the fact that we're at that 16 already is probably half of those came in one weekend alone, mainly due to the ambulances being shut down. So staffing from their perspective is a concern as well.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments before Clayton continues? You're good to go, Clayton.
So looking at our municipal enforcement aspect, this lumps in a little bit at the beginning of 2026, just because we were moving through the process at the end of 2025 into 2026. But as most of you are aware, we did get a couple of CPO1s working for us. So just kind of looking at our organizational chart, the RCMP admin kind of fall under us now as well, with Mike being the supervisor for those staff that are working out of detachment, just because of how familiar he is with their roles and responsibilities. They seem like a good fit to report back up into us. So we did that this year. Call volume for municipal enforcement, again, quite a variety throughout, but highlighting one of our bigger ones, our dog animal control bylaw. We did have quite a number, I think 65. So again, a larger portion. Our community standards are always up there as well. But just some interesting stats on some of our animal control, how many dogs we had housed in Raymond and or fostered, and as well as some that we just held within the pet clinic. But a bit of an update for the golf cart summary from the program from last year as well, of how many licensed and registered operators. And we really didn't have a lot of issues to report in that aspect either. Just the last bit of our photo radar statistics. Again, that's a part of the program that we still had to report all this stuff from 2025 as well. But the number of vehicles monitored and the average speeds as well in the areas that we had them, as well as our collision statistics for 2025. So again, part of our annual report that we had to complete that was mandated through the program as well before. And just some of the associated revenue and kind of ticket information, as well as some of the things that happen to be done in 2025 for traffic safety as well. So moving into emergency management, 2025 was also a busy year for that. We did have a functional exercise in 2025, which a lot of you were a part of as well, which was based on a chemical hazard from a highway transport truck that we responded to, utilizing our incident command post, as well as our ESS team at the reception center. As a part of that, we reviewed and revised our emergency management plan and associated documents based on our after-action report from the exercise to make sure that it is up to date and reflects what we do as a community. We had 2 emergency advisory committee meetings throughout the year, as well as kind of a meeting that wasn't necessarily a committee meeting, but the emergency advisory committee was a part of the exercise quite heavily as well and participated in that. As well, we reviewed a lot of the dam safety information that's with infrastructure and engineering to make sure that our plans for some of our pond areas are up to date. We had Alberta Emergency Alert Training completed by a couple members and a couple more completing here in 2026. And we also participated in the Lethbridge County Airport tabletop exercise as a mutual aid partner for them.
Thank you, Clayton. You do that very well. You explain that in a very easy to follow way, so I appreciate that. I'll open it up for members of council. Questions, comments? Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through to Chief. With the citizens on patrol, I don't know if that's something that is worth having some kind of a reporting mechanism on them. I know that they're in their infancy and still some growing pains there, and so it's. I'd be interested to see if that's something that you might be interested in preparing something for the future with council.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? So, can you speak briefly about our CPOs that we've just hired and training schedules?
Yeah, so one is in training right now already. He was hired and he needed to go to he was a CPO in Saskatchewan, which unfortunately they don't carry over any of the training. So he did the full course. So he is in training right now. He might even be in his second week. He started. So our other CPO was partially trained through Alberta Health Services. They just don't do the complete CPO 1 training. So he has a couple weeks where he will jump into the class and get the portions that he's done. But for the majority of it, he's here working as a bylaw officer until he gets that CPO 1 appointment finished off. So within the full training from start to finish is 13 weeks. So within probably about 10 weeks from now, we should see them starting to get that application done for their CPO 1 appointments.
Okay, thank you. And maybe when they're back from training, we could maybe make arrangement and come to a future council meeting so we could have you introduce them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That as well. Question 2 regarding the new facility in the industrial park for Alberta Health Services. Would you be able to reach out to them to see if they could entertain the idea of giving council a tour of that facility?
Yep, absolutely.
And then further to Councillor Chapman's comments regarding code reds and getting council involved with an education piece for Alberta Health Services. We're in the process of trying to set up a meeting with a representative from Alberta Health Services to talk on a few matters. And Jonathan Wensby is trying to locate the person that we need to speak to so we can bring that up with them as well. And then Councillor Pickering shared with me at the beginning of the meeting that Alberta Health Services have cut back the hours of the ambulatory care. Have you heard anything about that?
I had not, no.
So, Councillor Pickering, what hours are they going to work now?
I believe it was 5:30 to 9:30, and then 10 to 2 on weekends only.
So we want to get clarification on that, why we're the last to find out. So, and then we're going to be seeing you on April 14th for our council emergency management review. And just looking at the calendar invites, I'm not going to pick on anybody, but Deputy Mayor Beekman, Jordan Saylor, and our CAO need to respond to those calendar invites, please. Last opportunity, questions, comments? Seeing none, could I get someone to entertain making a motion that council receive the 2025 Protective Services Report for information? Councillor Reese makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. That is carried. Thank you. And Clayton, as always, please pass on our appreciation to the men and women of Coaldale and District Emergency Services. Moving on to agenda item 10.1 under council and committee reports. We have Councillor Dale Pickering giving us a verbal update on the Gem of the West Museum.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn and Council, for letting me update on what's been happening at the museum. The museum showcases the history, past, present, and how Coaldale became the great community it is today. So we'll start with, in 2025, the board decided to try a little different on shifted their way of raising funds and having fundraisers. So in 2025, we hosted 2 entertainment events instead of actually having silent auctions. With that happening, we found that the people that seemed to visit the museum were really enthralled, and we had really good turnout. Then we tried a couple other things too. We welcomed Dennis Shigematsu. He's a featured presenter he travels around the world, and he showed different things of where he's been, photography and articles like that. Plus, each year, we've been planning different entertainment just to expand to the audience reach. We received a grant for the Community Foundations of Lethbridge in Southwest Alberta, which also promoted the museum on social media. And our very own manager, Craig Day, was on the CBC radio eye-opener, increasing our regional exposure. So starting in 2026, as usual, we decided to try a few different things, and we changed one of our new exhibits. We opened up a new one. It's a barbershop. It's something that Coaldale was pretty famous for back in the early days. And we also updated our new Dutch room exhibit just to keep up with the times. We installed a couple new display cases to enhance our artifacts participation. And we plus continued just basically working with the outside people and getting new collection stuff brought to our museum. So this year, plus we tried, we've already participated in Coaldale Family Day, represented the museum at the University Career Fair, hosted just the other day at the Home and Garden Show, which we had very good response to. Another one that's famous for the museum is we collaborate with the public library in Coaldale and do story time, which is a big hit with the young kids. Actively promoting the museum and regional scale through the community and presence of social media and media outreach. Our biggest event is coming up on May 2nd, which will be featuring the opening day for the museum again, which we have every year. This year we're featuring Culture Fair with games, blacksmithing, demonstrations, and we're putting on a barbecue this year. So if any council members want to help with that, we're more than open for that. We've also invited 6 museums this year to set up tables and promote themselves at our museum as they promote for us. And our biggest one that's coming up too in April is Meet the Artist Night, April 18th, 2026. Michelle Camara, which is a local photographer in Coaldale, she's going to run an exhibit through the summer at our museum. And that's pretty well what all happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pickering. Any questions, comments from council? Your AGM that you just had, when you have those, could you get Craig to send out an invite to council, because it would be good for us to come and sit in on that.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions, Councillor Pickering wants to make a motion that council receive the Gem of the West update as information. No more discussion. I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to information items. We have 12.1, the 2026 operating budget. We have 12.2, MLA Grant Hunter's March 2026 Mayors and Rees report. We have 12.3, the Coaldale Public Library March and April 2026 newsletter and calendar. We have the 12.4, the Emergency Advisory Committee meeting minutes from April 14th, 2025. 12.5, we have the Emergency Advisory Committee meeting minutes from November 12th, 2024. And finally, we have 12.6, the pause meeting minutes from February 10th, 2026. Are there any questions, comments on either of those information items? Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. I guess through to Lana, can you just tell me why the emergency advisory minutes from November 2024 are just reaching us now?
Thank you for the question. Through to the chair, Councillor Reese. I had recently have been doing little mini audits on the committees and boards of minutes that we do receive, and it was discovered that that had not been posted on a public agenda, so that was the reason that it came forward. So.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, could I get someone entertain making a motion that council receive items 12.1 to 12.6 as information? Councillor Saylor makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. That concludes the open portion of the meeting. We will be going into closed session at 7 p.m. in accordance with Section 197-4-B of the Municipal Government Act to discuss matters exempt from disclosure for items 13.1, subject to Section 20, harmful to personal privacy. Item 13.2, subject to Section 19, disclosure harmful to the business interests of a third party. Section 30, disclosure harmful to the economic and other interests of a public body. And finally, items 13.2 and 13.3, subject to Section 28, local public body confidences, and Section 29, advice from officials. Who cares to make that motion? Councillor Saylor makes that motion. I'll call for the vote. And that is carried. We will take a 5-minute break.